And we're live. I've always wanted to say that. I don't know
Why? Why?
why not?
I don't know.
I think it's a thing.
It probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound bad, but it makes it sound like you're about to read like in rural Oklahoma today, a man was caught in a meth lab.
That's probably true.
I mean, I know. I had to come up with something believable. It's probably like in central Oklahoma. That's probably like the only thing that's ever on the news. A meth lab was found today.
Another meth lab was found. We just keep finding them. We don't know why.
Meth labs are cropping up all over central Oklahoma.
Apologies to any of our central Oklahoma fans.
Jake.
Jake. I don't know. He's in Stillwater. It's not really...
It's pretty central, isn't it?
All right, whatever.
Okay.
Close enough. All right. Are you ready to do this thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do this thing.
All right.
Okay, we're on episode...
Is it 18 or 17? We should probably figure that out, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I should figure that out before we say the wrong thing again. That was not fun last time. We were on 17.
We're on 17. Okay, I knew we were getting close to 20.
Okay, we're on 17.
So we could have just said 20-ish.
Yeah, episode 20-ish.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right, cool. We're good.
Welcome to the Loosely Coupled Podcast, episode 17. Tonight we're talking about mentoring and apprenticing, or being a mentor, being a mentee, or whatever you want to call it. We're talking about our experiences and how you can get involved and why you should get involved, I guess. I am your co-host, Jeff, and this is Matt. Matt, how's it going tonight, man?
It's going pretty well. I as I'm sure anybody that follows me on Twitter has learned, for Christmas I got a sous vide water recirculator. So every time I cook now, I have a series of like 10 tweets explaining that I'm eating food that's probably better than the food that you're eating.
That's very helpful to the rest of us.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a nice lime cilantro chicken breast tonight that I sous vide. I'm going to become that arrogant sous vide guy.
Yeah,
you didn't have that steak sous vide? Oh.
You almost need to move to Portland, I think. That's the kind of what I associate with it.
You associate sous vide with Portland?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sounds very Portlandy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I'm becoming a snob. Is basically what's going on.
Yeah, you're that guy. You should just get an Instagram account.
I have one.
Yeah, you should repurpose it for just your sous vide cooking.
What do you think I do with it?
I have no idea. I stay away from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's your loss, let me tell you.
Is that what your Snapchat is? It's just full of sous vide pictures?
Yeah, it's these beautifully cooked and cut steaks, chicken breasts, and asparagus, pretty much.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's been a little insight into my, since the last time we talked. This is our first episode of the new year, which is pretty exciting.
It is. Let's hope we don't mess it up.
Yeah. The Twitter police haven't shut us down yet, so.
Surprisingly.
So we're going to keep going until they do, right?
Yeah, I think that's the goal.
Okay. And for those of you that missed us last time, we have a sponsor for the show, right? This show tonight is sponsored by our good friend Code Rabbi, who is just about to depart for Europe on the initial leg of his Wisdom as a Service tour. The tour is a spirited initiative to engage more than 35 user groups representing over 2,000 PHP developers around the world in a conversation about community, software craftsmanship, personal growth, and professional development. If you are a user group organizer who would like to arrange a tour visit, a potential sponsor who wants your message to be part of the conversation, or simply interested in playing Where in the World is Code Rabbi, visit wisdomworldtour.com today. Do it right now.
Yeah, you should.
Well, I'll do it after you're done listening to us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can multitask.
We'll be done before midnight on the East Coast, so
you
have plenty of time to do it today.
Yeah. It's all good. Yeah, I think I'm most interested in just playing Where in the World is Code Rabbi.
I am too.
Even the wisdom thing is okay, I guess, if you're into that sort of stuff. But
yeah, that's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah, but Where in the World is Code Rabbi? That is what it's all about.
That is what it's all about.
Yeah.
I imagine there'll be like a map and we can like with the airplane
There,
graphic.
yeah, like a real-time map. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a
Cool.
game.
Yeah, but seriously though, I mean, Code Rabbit's a cool guy. His
Yeah,
world tour thing is a cool idea. So if he's coming
yeah,
near you, you should check it out.
yep. And he's putting in a lot of time, a lot of work to get prepared to travel everywhere. It sounds like.
Yeah,
So
travel.
if you're, if you check out Wisdom World Tour, he's got a whole list of his stops on his tour. If you're in one of those areas, uh, we would definitely both encourage you to go check him out, say hi, and yeah, if you're like us, just play the game.
Yeah, just play the game. That's my vote.
Yeah, if you're not on in one of those lucky tour stops, it's just like where in the world is Carmen San Diego, except Carmen San Diego is a rabbi in this case.
Well, I hear there is a stop in Dallas, in or
Okay.
around Lone Star PHP. So I would highly suggest you come to that. Not just because I'm from Texas, but because it's an awesome time. So you get 2 for 1. You get to hang out at Lone Star, and you get to see the infamous Code Rabbi. So you should do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we'll be there. So there's
we
that
will,
bonus too.
and
Yeah.
we'll be doing this there if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we did it last year. It
We
was
did.
awesome. We did a live broadcast, or I guess a live recording at the time. So we'll see what
Yeah,
we do this year.
yeah. Conference Wi-Fi, we may not be able to do a live stream, but it'd be cool if we could,
Yeah, it would be
because then
fun.
we
So
could make everyone feel bad about the fact that they're not there.
that's true. That is our goal in life: is to make
Mm,
everyone who listens to us feel bad, or at
more or
least.
less. Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. All right. Fine. Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
why don't we get to
anyway,
the topic?
yeah. Enough about that. Are you gonna get to it, or you want me
Well,
to
I
go?
was waiting for you to get to it. I never start these things. I let you go, and then I wait for your carefully crafted questions.
Oh, I see. All
But I
right.
can start it out, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about we're switching it all up today. I read the sponsor thing, and now I'm starting this podcast. Um, okay, so we're talking about being apprentice or a mentor, getting involved in that, how to kind of start. And I feel like for our PHP listeners, right, I'd be remiss if I didn't start this out immediately by mentioning PHP mentoring. Right, it's been brought up on the show a few times before. Um, we're both involved in the program, and what it basically is, it's I don't really know. It's not really it's an entity. It's more like an IRC channel, um, where you have different people with different skills, people that are looking for mentors, people that are looking for apprentices, and basically it's a big, um, wide open, free speaking area where people can kind of get to know each other and see if their skills would be a good match for some sort of mentor apprentice type relationship.
Yep.
Um,
I do know that there is a podcast out there that in the outro mentions PHP mentoring.
yeah, I'm not sure what that one's called.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I do. Yeah, I listened to one of our old ones, and I never listened to the intro because it's me and I hate the way I sound in it. But I did listen to it last time, and yeah. So we mentioned at the end of every show.
Yeah. So if you've ever listened to the end, or if you're one of those
If you've
people that
ever
just
made
skips
it,
ahead, you've probably heard us mention PHP mentoring
yeah,
before.
yeah. So to kind of kick this off, you know, how was your first experience with either mentoring or apprenticing, or like how did it start? How did it, how did you guys kind of have it set up?
Yeah,
Uh,
sure. So like, I mean, I guess my very first experience with it was, when I was a young kid, a couple months ago. No, when I was younger, and it was kind of on the job mentoring. So I was the apprentice, and there was a more senior developer there who was kind of my, person that I went to whenever I had questions, or kind of guided me along through problems that I had, that type of thing. So it wasn't really, I wouldn't say it was a formal mentorship apprenticeship kind of concept, but this person was kind of my um, I'll say guide. So they were kind of, when I got hired, they said, okay, this is the person you come to. So it was kind of like an informal mentorship kind of concept. So that was my first experience of having just a dedicated person to go talk, go and talk to a lot. And then beyond that, a couple times at other jobs I had people who were kind of coming to me with questions. So I became the mentor in those relationships, and then my first non-job related experience was with Chris Harches, the Groovy programmer, a couple years ago. When PHP mentoring was first getting kicked off, he was like, "Yeah, I'm looking at doing this," and he was like, "Hey, who's interested in this?" And so I kind of said, "Yes, I'm interested in it." And we, for that one, since we were geographically distributed and we weren't forced to be in the same room every day,
which is probably good for both of you.
Yeah, most likely it is. We kind of set up a Skype thing. So we would do, it was either weekly or bi-weekly, I don't really remember, but regularly we would get on Skype for about an hour and just kind of talk through some problems and some challenges and some things that I was interested in and things that he thought would be good for my career, good for just solving the problems that I was dealing with, and we just kind of used it as a conversation. And I think the most interesting thing that I learned from it is, learning the technical stuff is cool. The more compelling thing is that you kind of gain a peer and a friend and someone that you can learn from beyond just like the technical side, but you're cultivating a relationship, I guess, is what I would say. So I mean, that was my first foray into being an apprentice with someone who wasn't work related, and I think it was a very positive one.
Yeah. Well, and like for me, when I first got out of college and got my first programming job, I was the only developer at the newspaper, or at least in my department anyway. So I never had anybody until that situation that you just mentioned. When Chris made that offer, I also took him up on it, and that was really kind of my first ever experience where someone was like looking at my code, or I was talking to them about my code, and they were telling me how I could improve it, and how I was misunderstanding things, and getting that kind of feedback was a new. It's a really new thing. I left the newspaper thinking like I was a terrific programmer just because I had nothing to compare it to. I didn't have other people's code to look at and go, oh, okay, yeah, I see what that person did. Maybe I can try that. Maybe I can learn from what I did and apply some of the things that I'm reading in their code. It was all my code, and it kind of got to the point where if it's working, if it's doing solving the problem that it's intended to solve, then it's the world's best code. But yeah, no, and I would agree with your other point too, that through getting to know Chris, and eventually it led to working with him. I think they asked him about me when I applied at Synacor, and I think he just kind of grunted, which was a good grunt. It was like, yeah. So if you hire him, it's not the end of the world.
That's like top level recommendation.
Right. No, he was. From what I understand, he was much more verbose than that. But yeah, like I gained somebody that I could talk to. He gave me a lot of career advice. And we've got to know each other pretty well over the last couple of years. So there's definitely that aspect to it. And actually, that's how I actually met Code Rabbi, our sponsor for tonight's episode. I had put myself in as a mentor, and he had approached me asking if I would mentor him. So we've been talking. It used to be consistently. We don't talk as consistently anymore, but we tend to not be able to talk for less than an hour and a half when we do get together. But that's another person. We worked through some code stuff. We talked about some personal stuff. Got to know each other really well. I was going through some pretty hard times there for a while, and it was awesome to be able to see how that relationship of, hey, help me get better at coding, kind of blossomed into somebody that would support me and motivate me and challenge me outside of the realm of programming and of code. So I've definitely had good experiences on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of I don't know, I think that's the ultimate goal, or I think that's one of the things that you can look towards, like getting out of being involved, is if you're not ready at the present to be a mentor, like you don't feel like you can contribute in that way, um, you know, go find someone who will mentor you, and
Yeah.
from that you will gain the confidence, you'll gain the experience, and it may not happen the first time around or with the first person or whatever. It may not work out. It's just like anything else in life where you are kind of taking some sort of risk by putting yourself out there and saying, hey, I would like to
Absolutely.
learn from you, but in the end, I think it's more beneficial. Like it definitely outweighs the risk of that feeling of, what if I'm really not that smart, or what if it doesn't work out, or what if this person hates me, or whatever. I think it's worthwhile, because you will, or at least everyone that I've talked to and worked with, they've kind of gone from, hey, I'm an apprentice, I'm a new person in this scheme of things, but let's get through it. And then they work for a little while, and then it's like, hey, I can actually contribute to someone else, and so that's how it grows that way.
Right. And you can almost use those mentoring relationships that you've built as a way to improve like how you mentor. As you're still picking up things and gathering things, you can kind of take what you need out of those and then give those almost immediately back to somebody else,
Yep.
which is pretty neat. I think the personality, like I had one person that I mentored that it didn't work out horribly well, um, which happens, and I don't think, I mean, I didn't take it that hard, and I would hope he didn't either. It was somebody that was in Germany, so being the location was a bigger issue than it was with being a time zone or two away. It was like he was eating lunch when I was like taking a shower in the morning or something, and it was just hard to connect and find that time. But
Yeah.
personality, I think, goes into it a lot, and I think that's one of the reasons that um, I clicked so well with Chris and I clicked so well with Tyler and Code Rabbi was that our personalities were a good fit for that kind of thing. Like I knew Chris was going to tell me a lot of things that I probably needed to hear but probably didn't want to, and I knew Chris was going to try to bust my balls a little bit, which is something that I'm used to. If you're
Good, man. It's good.
if you're reserved and you're shy and you're sensitive, someone busting your balls may not be like something that's for you, but for me it really worked because I could give it back to him and he could take it, and it was just there's a whole lot of other dynamics other than just knowledge of code and knowledge of programming techniques and things like that kind of go into it. Um, you can kind of walk away from it. The goal is obviously to walk away from it and say, hey, this person really helped me out. Um, we don't want to kill each other. And
That's how
I've
you do things. I do the other side.
oh, so you try to kill all of your apprentices?
Well, I try to get them to try to kill me.
Oh,
That's
okay.
that's the goal.
That's different. Okay, that's different. Um, that's fine.
You heard it here, folks. It's fine.
Yeah. So if any of Jeff's apprentices are listening,
It's
the
okay
plan,
to kill him. It's all right. It's fine. No big
the
deal.
plan is in action.
We support that goal.
Um, but no, I mean, I think that's one thing that surprised me the most, more um, with the apprentice I had that didn't work out great with was I just didn't get a real good feel for his personality, and the time thing. led to a lot more email exchanges, which are good. And so one of my other mentors was Matt Turlin, and I know Matt, and I've met Matt, and I was actually coworker with Matt at Cinecor as well, and we did most of our stuff via email.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I would have a question. It was mostly when I was working on my IRC bot, which was Python, which I don't know if that's allowed in PHP mentoring, but we did it anyway.
It's
And
allowed. There's C mentoring and PHP mentoring, so I don't see why it's not allowed.
well, yeah, but that's mostly like contributing back to PHP.
So whatever, it's fine.
Right? But yeah, so me and Matt did it that way, and it was very low commitment for him and for me. It wasn't like, hey, you got to be available at on Tuesday at 7 o'clock every week or every other week
Yeah.
to have an hour-long thing. It was like, I'm working on something, I'm stuck, I can type up an email, send it out. And kind of knowing Matt already, even though there wasn't that face-to-face, I knew Matt enough and I knew his personality enough to where I could kind of read his emails knowing some of that, because when you read things, when you read emails, when you read things like that, a lot of times it's easy to take something that's written out of context and apply a tone or something to it that may or may not be there.
Yep.
So, getting to know the person, I think if you know somebody that you want to apprentice or that you want to mentor, or be apprentice or be a mentor or whatever, I think it's important to have a rapport if it's really going to work out. Even if it's just a couple weeks of just kind of talking and getting it requires you to put yourself out there a little bit more, I think, especially if you don't know the person in advance, right? So I'm not saying just find people that you know and that you're friends with to to get into one of these relationships, but if you can take the time to get involved in IRC and have conversations with these people and kind of get to know how they talk and how they are, you at least know what you're getting into a little bit more before you before you pop the question.
Before you pop the question. That's great advice, Matt. That's great advice. Don't just go around popping the question.
Think about it.
I think that's a valid. I think that's a valid thing to say because it's you're looking to make a big commitment. Like you're from either side, like from the mentoring side, which I think it's kind of a joke to consider like a teacher learner or teacher student kind of.
Did you say learner?
Learner, teacher student kind of thing because you are both going to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Not only about mentoring in general or that type of thing, but you're also going to learn things that you hadn't thought of because you're now presented with situations that you've never seen before that kind of apply to what you're talking or what you're accustomed to. So it is a good thing. I think it's important to realize that the commitment you're making is a very big one. So don't just be kind of haphazard with it. And I think especially from the mechanics of how PHP mentoring works, it's imperative that that if you're wanting to get involved, that the person who makes the initial contact and the person who does the homework, I guess you could say, should be the person seeking to be like the apprentice side. And that makes a lot of sense because it's very easy to go look at a whole bunch of mentor profiles or whatever to call it, or lists of people who are accepting mentors and say, oh, I'm looking to learn testing. Those people list testing. It's obviously, they're obviously a good fit. Let's talk to all of them.
Right.
But I think you should, the more effort that you put into it up front, the better it's going to be for you longer term. Like, so do your homework on the people that you're trying to get involved with, just to see, what have they written about? Like, what do they tweet about? Of course, that could also lead you astray if you're looking to learn about, I don't know, programming, and then you read Matt's Twitter and it's all about sous vide cooking. So you're like, well, this guy, I don't know what he's talking about. But like figure out or learn something about them before you say, hey, let's jump into this and schedule something every week. Like, spend a little bit of time talking to them outside of that context. I think is important.
I agree. And that actually kind of brings me to the next point I wanted to cover, because for a while, especially when PHP mentoring started kicking off, and we were sitting in the room kind of, most of the time, and I don't want to give any kind of like false impressions that the room is just people sitting in there wheeling and dealing and trying to find, people to mentor an apprentice like all the time. It's a social room. It's very laid back. It's not like an auction or speed dating or Tinder or anything like that, right? There's no swiping in PHP mentoring, right? But what I would see, why are you laughing?
I'm just picturing like a PHP mentoring channel where it's like, I'll bid 10 for Matt. I got 11.
That's way too high. But yeah, you made me lose my train of thought.
It's a social place.
So people would come in and they'd be like, "Hey, mentor me." Like that'd be the first thing that they say, and they're like, who are you talking to?" And they're like, "Just mentor me. I need a mentor." Like someone was gonna like, "Okay, I'll private message you, and then I'll find out exactly what you want to get mentored in, and I'll help you learn it, and I'll guide you through this. We'll take this journey together."
Well, hey, you're looking for an apprentice. This person's looking for a mentor. It's obviously made like
Right,
it's
right.
meant to be.
But I mean, I guess one of the things I wanted to cover with this is if you are an apprentice, or even a mentor. I see it less frequently with mentors being like, "Let me teach you." People are like, "What? Who?" But like if you're an apprentice and you're looking for a mentor, I think there's probably some pretty good tips on how to do that effectively. Because my fear was always that people were coming into PHP mentoring like, "Mentor me," and then everyone was like, "What?" And then they never found a mentor, and they're like, "PHP mentoring sucks. Doesn't work."
Terrible channel.
Yeah.
Would
What
not
is
visit
it?
again.
You're just wasting my time. 0 out of 10. So
Yeah.
that was always my fear, was that by not really knowing how to handle that, like that people were just leaving with a bad taste in their mouth about the whole kind of thing. But I think there are some really good tips and things that you can do if you're a apprentice in waiting, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I guess I'll just list mine off, and then I'll ask you if you have anything to add to it. Is that
That's normally how it works. Yeah.
okay? This is my first podcast. Don't mind me. No, so generally, right? As we kind of mentioned before, getting to know people is always a positive thing. Um, getting involved in the social aspect of it and talking to people, and then building up a rapport, or even asking someone if you can private message them and explaining your situation to them, is always a really good first step, instead of just coming in and typing in "mentor me," and then people are like, "In what?" And they're like, "PHP." Like, okay, all of PHP,
Programming.
right?
Programming.
Um, the other big thing that I noticed too is, and I've had conversations with people. This is generally somebody that's like not coming in and going mentor me, but they'll like message you and they'll say, "I need help in mentoring," and I say, "Okay, well, what do you need help with?" And they're like, "I don't know." It's like, well, if you're looking for a general PHP mentor, I don't know any. Like I know people that in certain subsets of PHP, whether it be testing or whether it be APIs or C, like you mentioned before, if you want to actually start contributing to the PHP source. like there's lots of people in these subsets, but most everybody I know, if you're like teach me everything about PHP, would be like, no, you don't want
PHP.net, man.
me to. You're right. So as a potential apprentice, coming in with an idea of, it's like coming in with an idea of what you actually need help with, and if you're a beginner and you want an apprentice to teach you all of PHP, like it's important to come in with a plan and not try to eat the elephant in one bite. I think that's an expression, isn't it?
Sure, man. I've never heard it before,
You
but
never. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Okay, never mind. Um, Forget it. Forget I said that.
okay,
We'll edit this.
we'll strike it.
Yeah. But coming in with an idea of I really want to learn object-oriented design. I really want to learn domain-driven design. Something that you can kind of start building blocks on top of each other in order to become the PHP master.
Yeah, and I think I would expand on that a little bit because I've personally dealt with some of this, just like getting an email that says, "Hey, I found your name on the PHP mentoring list, and I want to learn about OOP, and can you help me?" And I'm like, well, I mean, that's a really large subject. Like,
Right.
that's not really something that is, approachable from a mentoring standpoint. Like, in my opinion, anyway, like that's more of a I want a tutorial kind of thing. So,
Okay.
if that's your goal, like if you're wanting to learn object-oriented programming, I think you should do a little bit of upfront of the legwork and kind of say, you know, I attempted to learn object-oriented programming by reading these books or by reading like I learned this somehow. Like if you say you want to learn object-oriented programming, it's because you've already been exposed to it somehow. So you're not the person that's coming in and saying, I want to learn the PHPs or I want to learn how to programs. Um, you've got enough that you know that you want to learn object-oriented programming with PHP. So come in and say, I don't really understand, I don't understand something, so I'm trying to expand my knowledge of, design patterns, or I'm trying to expand my knowledge of how to how to how to how to build systems in in hexagonal architecture. Like something, like there's something that that you maybe don't understand, and that's a really good point to kind of break off as a mentoring relationship. Is say, I want to learn how to write tests. Like I want to learn testing, but what you're really wanting to ask is, I've got this legacy app I want to add tests to. I need someone that can help me with that, like, or help me understand how to go about doing that in a positive way or whatever. So be as specific as possible, and if you are one of those people you just want to learn a generic concept, like you're someone who wants to learn PHP, and you're Matt's I want to learn PHP person.
That's not my person.
No, that's your person. You brought it up, man.
I Okay.
So if you're
My
coming in
person.
and you're wanting to learn PHP, come in and say, you could tell someone that's fine, and then say, I don't know exactly what I want to know. Like I'm trying to figure it out, and that to me is just screaming, I want mentoring in career advice, or
Right.
That's what you're asking. Is you're saying, I want to know if at this point it's advantageous for me to learn PHP. So you're not asking about PHP specifically, because if you really wanted to learn PHP, you would do it, right? It's not like you necessarily need a guide to teach you that, teach you
Right.
the syntax of the language. That's easy to pick up. What you're wanting to learn is something beyond just that. So work with someone, and that's where that whole what Matt was talking about in terms of coming in and saying, hey, can someone help me figure out what I want to know? So ask that as your question, as opposed to I want to learn
Yeah.
PHP, and
Yeah.
somebody in the room will pick it up. Like if I'm in there, I would definitely try to say, hey, what is it that you're struggling with right now, or whatever.
Right.
And I say that because I have an apprentice that we've been working together for a while now, and he's been kind of off and on trying to learn like general programming in at this point now we're up to 2 languages I think, but just it's been a asynchronous kind of mentoring relationship. It's all email based, and he's at first he wasn't really programming a lot at his job, but he was trying to learn it, so he was kind of picking it up slowly. And so he had an application that he was working on, and he just wanted me to kind of help him through some of the rough spots, and that was a good vessel for that type of mentoring of you've got an idea, you want to see it come to life, you've got something together, so now you can ask somebody for some eyes to say, hey, this probably isn't a good idea, or maybe you should split this up, or have you ever heard of this particular concept? And then that leads to a longer and more substantial educational path than just saying, I don't know what I'm doing, can you help?
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you're going to come in, and I think kind of what the foundation of what my point was, and I think your point too, is just when you come and you're asking someone to donate their time to help you learn something, know what you know and know what you don't know, and have an idea. Even if you're not entirely sure, have an idea. If you come in and you're a new programmer and you say, I want to learn DDD,
yeah,
somebody's going to say, okay, well, hold on. Let's take a step back, because if you're new to programming or new to PHP or whatever, probably programming, why don't we take a step back and figure out what you actually need to know before you're ready to take on something like DDD? Because without programming knowledge, it's gonna be nonsense to you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah, that's
because you hear all these buzzwords and these things like I want to learn TDD and DDD and OPP, and that was a joke. Okay, never mind.
Object programming.
No, that was a naughty by nature joke. You're probably too young.
Yeah, too young for that.
You hear all these buzzwords and you think, oh, if I could just learn TDD, or if I could just learn object-oriented programming, or DDD, or any of those acronyms that are agile, then I would finally get ahead in my career, and I'd be able to learn this programming thing and really become an internet superstar like we are. I mean, we're still D level, but we're there.
That's a stretch.
We were. Some people know who we are.
Well, my mom knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. It's just it's a good idea to as being the person that's asking for someone else's time for free. It goes a long way to at least have a plan, or at least come in and be willing enough to say, I don't know what I need right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because the DDD thing, or the I would have learned this really. I saw this acronym, or I would have learned this really complicated thing. I don't know anything about programming. It's like going up to an empty field and saying, I'm going to build a skyscraper on here, and not owning a single tool, right? Or not having ever picked up a hammer or anything. And you're like, I'm going to build a skyscraper here, and you're like, you don't know how to weld, you don't know how to pour concrete, like you don't know anything. Like, how are you going to do this? It's the same thing. So kind of be honest with yourself when you're approaching it, and really try to take inventory. Like, at least think about, hey, what is it that I know, and what am I trying to learn, and why? Like, I think if you can answer the why question, I think that will get you leaps ahead of the people who are just trying to answer the what question.
Right.
And I think that's, like, speaking from a mentor perspective, whenever I've had someone approach me as wanting to get involved in this, or wanting to be an apprentice, and they're like, hey, I'm trying to learn something that I have listed on there, like I've got several things, but maybe I'm trying to get better at application architecture, so could you help me? And then I inevitably will ask, maybe not directly, just why do you want to learn that? But I'll figure out a way to ask the question that gets an answer that says, oh, I'm waiting to learn that because I was assigned this really difficult project, or I'm trying to become, a more senior level developer or a lead developer at my company or whatever, and that really helps me to understand what it is that that person is trying to do, like what they're hoping to get out of the relationship beyond
Right.
the knowledge.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to go about it. If you can get it, I mean, sometimes as the potential mentor, yeah, if you have questions um, and things like that that can draw more information out than maybe the person even knows how to give you, I
Yeah.
think that helps, at least helps you start to identify whether or not you'd be a good fit for that person, or maybe you're not, but you know somebody that's really versed in what it sounds like this person needs, and you can make an introduction or do something like that. It's a very vulnerable thing. I'm actually very impressed that PHP mentoring um, has. I mean, I think it's a great initiative. So, and I don't say this in a disparaging way, but I'm really impressed with the fact that that it started and that it's kind of just kept going and growing and gotten more attention and gotten more people and um, like in the beginning, it was almost like everybody kind of knew who everyone else was mentoring and apprenticing with and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like it was a small enough circle where everybody kind of knew, oh, he's with him and she's with her and whatever. Um, I don't know any of that anymore, which I took as a good thing. I'm just really impressed because it is such a vulnerable thing to do, to go into a room full of strangers or people that you don't know very well, or even people that you may only know from online that you've never met in person, and basically ask for help. I don't know. I think that's, for a lot of people, I think that's really scary, and the fact that we've got such a big group of people um, that are willing to do that, I think, is really awesome.
Yeah, it's for sure it's a big step. Like you're saying, you're coming out and saying, hey, I don't understand this. I need someone to help me understand this. And it is very, daunting to do that, especially to people that you don't really know, or don't know well, or what have you. So yeah, but I think, like I said before, I think it's totally worth the risk. I think everybody should do it. Whether it's through PHP mentoring, or if you whatever language, or whatever, like don't get too caught up in all that.
Right.
Just, I think the PHP mentoring movement, or whatever you want to call it, I think is a good place to. I mean, you'll find people in there that are doing all sorts of things in all sorts of languages. So don't get too caught up on the naming. Um, Figure out a way to get past that and say, hey, I'm trying to be a better programmer in general. I mean, there's going to be a lot of PHP people in there, but I don't think that you should get too caught up on that.
Right. I'm not aware, and maybe you are because you're a Ruby guy. Um, I'm not aware of a similar initiative in other languages. If are I and I
Not
said the Ruby thing as a joke, but I am actually wondering if you know anything in Python or JavaScript or Ruby or anything like that. That's
I mean, I've not seen it to the same extent or the same scale,
mhm.
but I have seen in different communities, like different user groups, or events or anything, like pushing for outside mentoring, that type of stuff, like similar concept, but just not as, I don't want to say organized, because PHP mentoring isn't all that organized, but not as central, or not as like visible as an umbrella, I guess.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there is, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think because I don't know if I agreed with your point that PHP mentoring isn't organized. I think it's as organized as it needs to be. Like it's definitely not like really organized, but part of the beauty of it is that it lets the people that find each other in this crazy world kind of set up the bounds and the constraints of their own mentoring relationship and how they want to do it, whether it's email, whether it's Skype, whether if the people are in the same city, maybe it's face-to-face meetings, like over ice cream or something, or coffee. Probably coffee is probably better than ice cream. Um, so I think it's like, hey, these are kind of the rules. Like if you're an apprentice, like try to come in with as much of an idea as you can about what you need, and it's up to you to kind of start the conversation and all those types of things. I think that's, there are some, I don't want to call them rules, but some guidelines in how, as a newcomer, you can make this an effective thing for you. But I think, from an organization standpoint, I think it's like perfect. It's the right amount of guidelines and procedures and all that kind of stuff without being prescriptive on how you should do it.
Can we agree that it's sort of structured in the mechanics of how it happens, but not necessarily organized from the standpoint of, there's someone who's watching out over everything that is PHP mentoring and policing it. Like that's kind of what I mean is in terms of organized, and that's why.
I don't know. Some people.
No.
I don't know. Yeah, we can agree on that, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know what you're saying.
Glad we got past that. Anyway, yeah. So another thing that I think is important in mentoring and apprenticing, beyond what we've already talked about, is the relationship side of things. Like I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think it's important to talk about beyond just programming. Like you're going to build up a, I don't want to say a lifelong friendship with people, but you're beyond just someone who's passing out free advice on Twitter to people. You're at a point where you're actually dealing with another person. So I think it's something that you should watch out for as both an apprentice and as a mentor in that you're now involving yourself, long term with somebody or with someone else in the community. So just be aware of that or be cognizant of that as you're dealing with it, because it's very easy to become overextended quickly in this type of thing, because it's easy to say, hey, I could take on two apprentices, because that's only like what, 2 hours every week maybe, and I could do that, and then I could be an apprentice to somebody, so now that's another hour, maybe two people. So it's very easy to kind of really not pay as close attention to each of the people you've committed to
Right.
because you have so many. So I think it's something that I had to learn, which was it sounds like, yeah, I can answer an email, so I can take on one person and we can communicate via email, and then I can have a hour-long conversation with this person every other week, and then an hour-long conversation with this person every week, and it'll all be fine. But you end up being very overextended for time, and so you don't end up paying the appropriate amount of attention to the relationship that you're building. So my advice is slow down. Like think about what you're doing every time someone contacts you, every time you contact someone. Like think about, do I actually have the time to make the commitment to this relationship for longer than 5 minutes?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Or you can take Code Rabbi's approach and commit to everything and do a world tour and keynote at every conference known to man, write a book, and whatever else he's doing. Like you can do all of that.
Yeah.
Or you can go to the beach and relax. Whatever you want to do.
Right. Well, I think too, you kind of brought up like before, like not to get too hung up on languages and things like that. I think it's also important to know, PHP mentoring is an initiative, and it's a pretty popular one. I think PHP Women does some of the kind of same things. obviously there's a different kind of focus in that organization than there is in PHP mentoring. The PHP mentoring is obviously open to everyone, um, as is PHP women. But if you go into PHP mentoring and you don't have luck with finding a mentor, or the people that you really want to mentor you are just like filled up and they don't have the time to take on another apprentice, there's always people around you, at your job, at your local user group, that you could approach and kind of come with the idea of, hey, do you maybe have, at least for a little while, do you have an hour that you could talk to me every week where we can kind of just talk about code stuff? And I think that's kind of obviously, being part of PHP mentoring, I want to see PHP mentoring do really well. I want to see PHP mentoring become your one-stop shop for all your mentoring needs. I'm really into this whole sponsor thing tonight.
Keep going, man. I'm liking
Right.
this.
Right. But there's just, depending on the time that you come in and who's active and who's there and who's available, you may not come in the first time and find that person you want, or the person that has skills that match or whatever. It's to your benefit, I think, to not limit yourself to one kind of pool of people. If you've got smart coworkers and you get along with them, and they're kind of in that teaching mode, like, hey, if I teach you how to do this, then it makes my job a little bit easier and it helps you get better. Those are some great people to ask, or ask the speaker at your local user group. For time. I think it's an opportunity that I don't think about it as much that way because I have been so involved with PHP mentoring for a while. But I think it's an excellent opportunity to find people that you already know a little bit from going to the meetings and working with or whatever, to kind of find those people to help you out with your code and career related things.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
That kind of got away from me a little bit there.
It's all right, man.
I
can mentor you on that. I'm just kidding.
I had it, and then after I did my sponsoring spot for the Walmart of PHP mentoring, it got away.
Yeah, you could actually buy groceries at PHP mentoring.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't. Disclaimer, you cannot do that.
No. Yeah, you can't really do that. I don't think anyone was going to try, but whatever. No, so what else? I think what else is important to you, like when you're trying to find someone who's going to be like someone you want to mentor you? Like what is your strategy? Like how do you do it?
The biggest thing for me is I like to know, maybe not if I don't know the person personally, I like to know that the person knows what they're doing, and I may find that out by following them on Twitter. I may find that out by checking out their GitHub profile. I may do that in a lot of ways, but my biggest fear was always like, I'm gonna look for this person just on the list and say, oh, they have this thing that I want to learn, and I'm gonna go to them, and they're gonna know as much as I do, and then you've got that awkward, I thought you knew more than you did conversation. Like this isn't gonna work because we're kind of in the same spot, and I'm looking to kind of get beyond where it's a horrible conversation.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that actually answers a question I had about, why you never asked me to be your mentor is because you're looking for someone who wants to know what they're doing. So
exactly.
Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing. So
no, you
totally
mentored me. You mentored me once. We didn't enter into an official. It was like it's complicated. Facebook relationship status.
We've got it's complicated mentoring a relationship. Fantastic.
Yes, yeah. No, you helped me out the one time with abstracts.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
So I wasn't ready to commit to you.
That's perfectly fine.
I was
Then
just
you joined a podcast with me, so
right,
I
right.
don't know where this is going, but
I was just trying to hit it and quit it, and
and that really got awkward. So
here we are.
and here we are. You can't get rid of me, man. Yeah. So I think another piece of advice that I have is don't be afraid to, call it quits. Like I think from both sides of the table or whatever, I think it is something that it sucks, like it's hard, but you can't go into something saying well, this has to work, like this is the person who's going to change my life or whatever. Like you need to be realistic about things and be always be paying attention, like always pay attention to what's going on, and if it's helping you, great. If it's not, you have to be able to communicate that with the other person and say, hey, this isn't really what I was expecting, or something's changed. Like maybe it moves from you originally wanted to learn about testing and then you're now managing or whatever. So you're like, well, I need help with something else now beyond just what I was trying to learn originally, or the path I was trying to do, and this person can't help me. So you need to be able to communicate that. So always, don't feel like you're locked in just because you spent the time and effort to grow or to start the relationship.
Right.
Always be aware that it's okay. Like people do need to move on sometimes, and as an apprentice, sometimes you need to move on because you're not getting what you need, and as a mentor, sometimes you need to move on because you can't help the person, you have time
Right.
commitments, or there's something that's not right in that relationship. So
Yeah, it could
it's
just be
not
timing. I
yeah.
mean, I know like when I my first apprentice was Tyler. Um, I'm just like name dropping all my apprentices. Um, and we did the thing for a while. We did the thing for I think like a year and a half. And it kind of got to a point for both of us where I was like, um, I think it's easier from the mentor standpoint because like Grumpy did with us. At least, well, I don't know if he did it with you. I don't know if you ever graduated, but um, I graduated, and so as a mentor, I can be like, hey, you know what? You've learned so much. You're doing really great. It's time for you to kind of spread your wings
Yeah.
and fly.
Yeah, he graduated me too. He kicked me really hard and out of the nest, so I kind of fell to the
Yeah,
ground. And
yeah.
I had to fly. Yeah.
But the one thing I think that's really cool that I think a lot of people don't know, like when you talk about mentoring in kind of the technology or the programming realm, is that there's so many people with so many diverse skill sets that I've seen a lot of situations where people form a mentor mentee bond, and it's not really about programming at all. It might be about speaking, or it might be about technical writing, or it might be about um, any other of those kind of related things. Like if somebody really wants to become um, a speaker at a conference, you've got people all around you on Twitter and in IRC and things like that that do it relatively regularly. That could help you with your abstracts. It could help you with um, slides and kind of give you some stage presence tips and some speaking tips and um, I think there's a great deal of versatility in utilizing people's skills that aren't just programming, that aren't just writing code or
Yeah.
architecting solutions. Like people are generally pretty awesome and they do a lot of things. And there's a pretty good chance that you come into PHP mentoring or into work or something, you're going to find people have whether they're hobbies or whether the things they do in their free time that can help you kind of become a more well-rounded technologist.
I can agree with that.
So, because you'll run into a lot of people, that at least I will. Maybe not you, but I will. I'll run into a lot of people where I'm like, I could probably help them a little bit. Like I can see a small window of I could probably mentor this person for a month or 2 months, because they're really not that far away from what they want to learn, and maybe I'll outlive my usefulness right away. Maybe they'll meet with me once and have that "I thought you knew more" kind of response, which is which is generally what happens. Um, so I think it's to become well-rounded. It's not just about writing code. It's about being able to explain your ideas. It's about being able to write technical, whether it's blog posts or whether it's documentation, to be able to give presentations, whether they're at a conference or to a group of coworkers. They're going to help you in your career and help you kind of become more of a well-rounded, individual.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that's yeah. I mean, I think that's something that is valuable. Like having, even if it's just, hey, I've got this one-off thing I really need help with. Like, that time when you were like, hey, I want to speak at conferences and just pick people's brains. So maybe you find like 3 people that are they're active in mentoring and that they're so be upfront with them and just say, hey, I don't at this time I don't really want to commit to like a long-term thing, but I need to learn about like I'm trying to figure out how to develop an abstract that will get me into a conference, and then don't contact me because I can help you figure out how to get it rejected.
Especially if it's in Canada.
Yeah. Especially if it's in Canada, but not True North, because True North.
Yeah, you got in.
But,
not in Quebec.
Yeah, as long as it's not there. That's the only one I can't tell you anything about. But just finding someone that can give you even some one-off advice, and I think that's a very powerful thing, and that's I'm on codementor.org or whatever. Is it .org? Maybe .com probably. I'm on that or .io, and whatever it is, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a spokesman for them.
Google
and then Hackhands as well, which is a great place if you're, if you've got a specific problem that you need help with. I would advise going to that type of service, which you're going to pay for, but depending on who it is and what what you're looking to do, it probably isn't that much money. So if you've got like an hour, and I know Phil Sturgeon does this as well, like just hey, I'll give you an hour of time for $100 or whatever. So if you've got a specific problem that you're trying to work through, that's a good route to go, as opposed to a more formalized mentoring type. Like I tend to look at it as PHP mentoring is more for I'm wanting to over time develop some skill or develop my career path or learn how to be better at this, whereas something like codementor.org or that type of thing is, why do I keep saying .org? Codementor.io is more for like, I've got this very specific problem that I can't figure out, please help me with it. That's more, I mean, I think of that less as mentoring so much as it is just one-off pair programming or that type of thing.
Yeah. I meant to ask you when we did our little one-off abstract mentoring sesh a few years ago. Do you remember the topic of the talks that I was coming up with?
No, I don't.
Because you'll laugh.
What were they?
I had one talk that I was going to give on Agile.
Nice.
And one that I wanted to give on XP.
Well, there you go. See, these are two of your passions. That's what I always tell people. I tell people if you're trying to get involved in speaking, you should absolutely pick something that you're passionate about.
At the time, I was very passionate about Agile.
Like, don't think that you're the first talk you're ever going to give is some subject that you read a blog post on.
Right.
It needs to be something that you are very passionate about, that you do a lot, or that you've done a lot of work in. Like that's my advice, because that is going to come through in your abstract and like how you talk about the talk, and
Yeah.
that type of thing is going to come through. So as long as we're giving out free advice on getting talks accepted or whatever, make sure that you're building things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're saying in the channel that they would love to go to your talk on Agile and XP.
It would be a lot different now than it would have been 2 years ago.
Fantastic.
Yep. I would just have nope.gif on every slide.
Well, you could just like get a transcript of our Agile episode and just kind
I just read it.
of. I mean, you could turn it into slides. You could make it an actual
Yeah.
presentation.
An interactive presentation of
Yeah.
my
Don't just
Agile
read it.
diatribe.
Hey, that was a good episode, man.
It was. It was one of our most popular ones. I think.
It is one of our most popular. That's true.
Yeah. I'll do that. I'm going to submit a talk where it's just me reading a podcast transcript.
I'm sure it will get accepted.
Don't tell a Lone Star, but that's my plan for one of my talks there.
You could give it on the hallway track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what else you got for mentoring, man?
There was something that I had on my mind a little bit ago, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was.
Good talk, man. Good talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
grab some bench.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Is there anything you have that our listeners might find interesting?
So I've got a story. I think this is, one of my or one of the people that I've mentored. He is over in England, so we had the whole time zone thing, but it worked out okay because I had some time during the day that I could do it, so just worked out that way. But it was interesting because it started out like we had a few conversations back and forth or a few emails back and forth, and we were like, oh, he's trying to learn application architecture more so, and so we talked about like what he'd done and what he was struggling with, and that kind of led to I figured out, okay, he's looking to learn this technically, and then we started we started meeting every other week, I think. We'd have a hangout, and it ended up, I don't think we ever talked about application architecture to any like extreme extent, because we ended up where he was in a position at that point where he was moving up in the company, I guess. So he was becoming a more senior level developer, and so that's why he was interested in the application side. But it turned out that he had a lot of stuff that he wanted to do career-wise that he wasn't really aware of, and he ended up as a result. We talked about like instituting testing days, like just like a period where everyone would get together and they're trying to add tests in this legacy code. So like learning about testing and actually writing code, like actually writing tests for the code, that type of thing. So it became a how do you lead a team mentorship more than a how do I architect applications
Right.
mentorship. And so I think that was, to me, that was interesting, and I think that's something that you should expect the unexpected, if you want to use a phrase. But just when you go into a mentoring relationship, be aware that you may think you know what you want, and you may have got to a point where you both think you know what you're doing or what you're going to be talking about, but it may take a complete different turn. And that was advice that I think would have been very helpful to me when I started with Chris, because we did talk a lot about testing. So that's what we initially started out. That was like the premise of what we wanted to do, but we talked more so about how do you evolve legacy code. Like, how do you evolve code that you're wanting to change? You're wanting to change the architecture for with tests. How do you do that? And so it was a different. It wasn't just, I'm trying to learn how to be a better tester, which ultimately that's what ended up happening. But
Right.
it was less about that. So don't feel trapped into whatever you originally thought. Like, let the relationship take its course, and as things come up, just kind of follow them. That's my advice.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think because I think this happened same thing with Chris and I. We spent the first couple times that we met together, I had questions about testing, very specific to unit tests and tests that I was writing at work and things like that. Around mocking and fixtures and things like that, and we were able to go through those. And most of the good advice that I got from Chris, and I actually give him a lot of credit for kind of giving me the confidence and the I guess just the confidence. There's another word I was going to use, but I couldn't think of the right one. To kind of take control of my own career, to kind of more accurately diagnose whether it was problems with a job or problems with how I was applying for jobs or presenting myself or interviewing or things like that. I owe him a lot of a lot of credit for kind of teaching me to say to be a little bit more assertive in what I'm expecting from a job, what I'm expecting in certain aspects of my career, and that it was okay for for me to say this is not what I want, this is not, or this circumstance isn't acceptable to me, and to do whatever I can to change it, up to and including finding a new job.
Yep.
Like it's okay to quit. Like if it's not building you up and it's not making you better, if you stay there, you're just going to end up being miserable. So, yeah, definitely.
It's okay to quit if you want to be a quitter, right?
Yeah. No, that wasn't what. That wasn't what he. No, it was good advice. That's not the gist of what I was trying to say. But I noticed with the people that I had mentored myself that kind of where we started was never really where we ended up. I want to learn about testing and I want to learn about OOP and I want to learn about all this stuff. It's like, okay, great, let's start there. And it was really rewarding for me, and I think, and I hope for them. Code Rabbi can correct me if I'm wrong here. But it was really kind of rewarding to let the relationship just kind of go the way that it was naturally going to go, and let the topics kind of flow out the way that they need to flow. In order to kind of make sure that person is getting what they need, and I'm still kind of equipped to give them that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that is important. Like, just don't try to force it back to what you were expecting. Like, don't constrain your mentorship. You're only hurting yourself in the long run.
Yeah, you go. I like that. Now you sound like the pitch man.
But I'm not pitching any specific organization, man. I'm pitching the idea of mentorship. Yeah, I think, something that I would really like to see is, more companies pushing for mentorship. You don't really see, or at least I don't really see a lot of that, or, the few times that I've been, job hunting, whatever you want to call it.
Job hunting's good.
It's what?
That's the right word. I think you used the word correctly.
Yeah. I'm saying, or whatever you want to call it.
Job searching.
The few times I've been looking for a job, I haven't really seen many places that say, or that are telling me, hey, we really value having relationships between our. Okay, let's rephrase that. We really value, cultivating learning between our employees through mentorship, and I think that's something that I would love to see the industry really pick up on, is providing support for people who are working, because it's
Right.
I feel like a lot of times you end up with, maybe you've got a really good onboarding process, so you end up with one person who's your buddy, or whatever you want to call it, like whatever your company calls them, like your onboarding buddy, and so
Yeah.
you talk to them for a while, and then that fades away, of course. But it's not really about continued growth. It's more about just how can we most efficiently get them productive in
Yes.
our environment. So I would love to see the culture shift in the tech industry to a more, hey, we understand that you know the good programmers are continuously learning. So let's provide them the opportunity to do that here. Like, let's provide them the tools to do that here, and then to share that with their coworkers. Like, I think that's something that I would like to see a lot more of than I do see currently.
See, that's one thing I thought Cinecore did really well. Same thing. I started and I had a buddy, and she was awesome. Um, we got together. I mean, she was. The idea is obviously right. Those people, that the new person would lean on the buddy for the least amount of time possible,
Yeah,
right? Because at that point then they would be productive. And my Cinecore buddy and I think worked together. She ended up leaving our team and going to a different department, which is maybe my fault.
what did you do, man?
No. Um, but I mean, even like 6 months in, we were still pair programming. We were still sitting down together and going through problems, and I had to accept the fact that it was going to just be Cinecore stuff, right? It wasn't going to be general programming um, type things like I would do with Chris or with you or with anybody else. It
Sure.
was like, I'm going to teach you how to work within the Cinecore stuff. Um, but yeah, I was really like that type of stuff wasn't discouraged. Like, she reached out to me before I started, like a week before I started, and she was the first one to kind of make contact, other than the people I interviewed with. Um, she helped me get my machine set up. She helped me get everything kind of squared away, and I knew she was doing all of this while she still had work to do, was
Yeah.
responsibilities to handle, and um, I was really pretty impressed with that whole thing, and I always thought very highly of her, and um, that was one of the things Cinecore I thought did really well.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's something that a lot of companies could learn from. Is
Yeah, but it is uncommon. I agree with you there. It's not. That's the first place I've ever been where there's really been somebody dedicated to. It's normally like, okay, well, if you have any questions, ask so and so. If you have a question about this project, ask so and so, and they almost kind of become like Google for you,
yeah,
like an internal Google. Like,
yeah,
you ever seen those skits? Like, what if Google were a guy?
yes, I've seen those.
Yeah. So that's what it kind of felt like. Like, hey, I'm working
Yeah,
on this project. What do I do? And then they give you the one answer, but you don't really understand why or how or you know the theory and the reason behind it. You just kind of go, okay, well, I have enough to get this ticket done, and I guess I'm productive now.
yeah, and I think that's that's good. I think that it is good to have that built into the company in general. But
It's
like,
different though. It's not the
yeah,
same
it's
as having you know,
a mentor.
yes,
Totally not the same thing. Yeah, so I think that I think it'd be cool if the industry could learn from PHP mentoring success. Like, see that not just that it's successful and there's a lot of people and that people talk about it on podcasts, which, I mean, that's a big deal, I guess, but you know see that there is enough demand for it, that someone has created it in their free time, and someone has created, and people are donating their free time, and people are spending their time outside of work getting better. And I think that's something that you should take notice of as as a company, and say, hey, let me provide that here, so it's not necessarily something that they have to go elsewhere to do.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So if you're listening, company people, you should
If there's any CEOs or directors of development listening to this podcast,
if there's any CTOs like Jock listening, no, I'm just kidding.
get on it, Jock.
You're not allowed to code, but you are definitely allowed to or create mentoring programs within
Well, I
your
think too the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with this that's helpful for a company is if you've got the space to do it, um, sponsor a user group or start a user group and have them meet in your space and encourage your coworkers to go there and get involved.
Yeah.
I know not every company has the space to do that or the facilities to do that, but for those that do, that's a really effective way of bringing in outside help that's a little bit more general. It's not going to teach you about the internal workings of your company, but it's going to help people introduce themselves to other members of the community and help them kind of become better, just general programmers.
Yeah, which I mean, I've always found it interesting. The whole, this isn't exclusively about my company, so it's a bad thing. It's like, if you have problems, so there are solutions to those problems, which may not be something that you know of or that you have in your system right now, or
Right.
whatever. So why would you not want someone who can teach you about something completely different than what you're used to?
Right.
How would that not benefit you? I don't understand. But
Right. Well, and some of these companies too are the same ones that their recruiters send me emails on LinkedIn every day, and
that's true.
anytime you can bring more and more people into the building and get them to interact with the people that work for you already. I'm just throwing this out there for the recruiter, Lonnie, if you're listening.
If you were just physically located here, it would improve the team. It would. No, that's not how it works.
That's not what I meant, but the more people you get in the door, and you kind of, you can represent yourself in a way that makes you look more attractive than someone sending me a connection request on LinkedIn that I've never seen or met in a day in my life.
Lead tech scout for.
Right. You know what I think of when I see lead tech scout?
What do you think of?
I think of somebody like sitting in a boardroom, like in a meeting with programmers, with like a baseball hat and a clipboard and a radar gun.
They're like, "Oh, did you see that? Did you see that guy?
Whoa, we gotta check this guy out.
Did you see how quickly he refactored that if statement? That was amazing. We need to sign this guy tomorrow. Let's contact his agent."
He's a five tool prospect.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that kind of wraps up what I had to say about mentoring.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good. Should we see if anyone in IRC is even listening? If they have any questions?
It doesn't look like anyone's listening.
I know. Okay.
Everyone's kind of sleeping.
Yeah. Does anyone in IRC have any questions about mentoring that we didn't cover?
You could ask them in IRC.
Well, I want to wait. I want to give myself a little time to.
Oh, you want the delay? Right?
Yeah.
The delay has to kick in. Yeah.
Working the delay here. So we'll give them a minute and.
We'll ramble in the minute that we're waiting.
You can ramble.
Yeah. No, I think I think just to summarize, like I think if there's one piece of advice that you take away, like from me or from this episode or whatever, it's take the risk. Like definitely take the risk to get involved. Like it's worth it. So don't hold back just because you're scared of putting yourself out there or whatever. Just take the leap of faith and do it. Right? Like just get involved tomorrow. Go to PHP mentoring or local user group or whatever. Just it's worth the effort, I promise.
Yep. And you end up meeting some really awesome people and making some good. Even if you don't end up in a mentoring relationship, you can end up making some really good friends and really good contacts and stuff. So.
For sure.
And we're all mostly nice. Some of us aren't nice, but me and Jeff are usually pretty nice.
Yeah. Usually. Just depends, man.
Yeah. Depends. We're only nice on days that don't end in Y.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
So I don't think anyone has any questions. At least nobody's asked any yet.
Yeah, and I did actually chat it.
I
And
see that. So I
I
think we're good.
think we are.
So I believe that was. And hey, we missed our amazing summarizer,
I
Chris.
know, I know. I was a little disappointed to see that he was just idling in here and not.
Dragon Man Tank, where are you, my friend? So, yeah, so we don't really have a summary for this episode. That's fine.
Maybe
No
next
big deal.
time.
Maybe you'll have to actually go back and listen to it instead of skipping to the summary, like I know all of you are doing.
I'm sure
Yeah,
no one does that.
I'm sure no one does. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so check out PhD Mentoring if you haven't already. We're going to plug it one more time. Check out Code Rabbi and his Wisdom World Tour.
In our shirts, right? We wore our
And our
shirts today.
shirts. We have our shirts on. So
Our
if
Code
you
Rabbi
are
shirts.
just listening to this, we are wearing our Code Rabbi shirts. So
He's not actually a penguin.
yeah, that really surprised me the first time I
I was
met him.
surprised too. He's really tall and also not a penguin.
Yeah, it's quite strange.
It
So
was I felt a little misled, but he's he's a nice guy, and yeah, you should definitely check out his world tour.
yes, do that. So wisdomworldtour.com. Follow him on Twitter, Code Rabbi. Do that right now if you haven't already. So that is episode 17 of the Loosely Coupled Podcast, Mentoring and Apprenticing. You should definitely get involved. phmentoring.org. Check it out. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Later.